For today's episode of The Wisdom of St Ignatius, I'd like to talk about something that touches my own life. I found my patron saint, although he's not a saint, in the Jesuit order, and his name is Jerome Nadal, because he originally rejected being a Jesuit, and then the Lord led him to the Society of Jesus. And so my story is very similar, that I went wanting to be a priest to Mexico to pray. The only thing I knew was that I didn't want to be a Jesuit. And lo and behold, the Lord turned that around, within the several months, the almost year that I was there in Mexico. And the same thing happened to Jerome Nadal, and he would eventually become one of the great interpreters, perhaps the greatest interpreter of the mind of St. Ignatius. In fact, they said, of all people, he knew the mind of St. Ignatius better than anybody. And Ignatius himself acknowledged that in sending him to explain the constitutions and the rules for living the society, really in many ways creatively applying that in ways that Ignatius couldn't have imagined, because Ignatius was centered in Rome and Nadal was going everywhere else. He first ran into Ignatius in the early days of St. Ignatius's itinerary as a student in Alcalá. They were students there together, but he kept his distance from Ignatius, Inigo, as he would have been known back then. He kept his distance because he was under the cloud of the Inquisition, and there were questions about what he was doing in his direction of women in the city of Alcalá. Ignatius eventually left Alcalá for Salamanca because things got too hot for him there, and in Salamanca things never worked out for him, so he moved up to Paris. Nadal was in Paris eventually, and Ignatius then had begun to gather around himself several companions, and they were all Spaniards, as was Nadal, but Nadal didn't want to have much to do with them because he viewed them as perhaps part of that shadowy alumbrado group. For him, he specifically said the exercises weren't for me, the Gospels are for me. And so he even looked with suspicion upon the foundational experience that united the companions in such a tight bond. So eventually he would move on to Avignon, where he got his doctorate, was ordained, and then returned to his home in Mallorca. In the meantime, the early companions at Ignatius went off, ended up in Rome, and began their order. Things didn't work out emotionally for Nadal. He never quite found his place in his homeland as much as he expected that he would. And one day a document arrived, a letter that Francis Xavier had sent to the whole world, especially to the university students, saying, come to the missions, work here, save souls, because there you're only worried about the ease of living and convenience for your future. It touched Nadal very, very deeply. And he discovered through that Francis was in India. Ignatius was in Rome, now Superior General. So off he went to Rome because he thought, maybe there's a second chance for me. Came to Ignatius, explained all the reasons why he shouldn't be a Jesuit. And Ignatius looked at him and said very peacefully, there is a place for you in the society if God is calling you. He began the spiritual exercises that he had looked down on before and found within a couple of weeks that he needed to make a vow to join the Society of Jesus. Nadal is the patron saint of discovering your vocation when first you turn against it. Maybe in your life, as in my life and other times, there are things that we turn against. Our initial reaction isn't that this is where God is speaking to us. But over time, the Lord introducing things into our lives opens our eyes, and we're able to accept and find God in the path that God has chosen for us. And that's the wisdom of St. Ignatius for today.